Okay, we have about 26 people on the call, 27 people on the call now. So we'll go ahead and get started. And Councilman Arias, would you like to welcome everyone?
Yes, thank you, Courtney. To the rest of the panel members in the committee, thank you for the explain this evening. Unfortunately, I'm not on video because I'm trying to be somewhat of a decent father today by watching my kids first practice. So I'm going to try and remain focused while being somewhat of an average parent today. But thank you again for spending the time this evening on making sure that we stay on budget and on time with all these important projects in the PCC area. With that, I'll turn it back to Courtney.
Thank you. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we have American Sign Language translation tonight with Pamela and Aaron on your screen. And we also have simultaneous translation services for those that need it tonight for both Hmong and Spanish. I will go ahead and let our wonderful interpreters introduce themselves and provide instruction in their native language.
Muy buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es María Mejía In y estoy aquí con Lingüística. Yo seré su intérprete para el idioma español. Para accesar a la opción de interpretación, por favor de seleccionar el icono que aparece un mundo. Luego seleccionará el idioma español y va a silenciar el audio original. Le invitamos a hacer preguntas y comentarios en su idioma de preferencia. Si está usando la aplicación de Zoom por teléfono, por favor seleccionar los 3 puntos, después lenguaje de interpretación y por último español. Gracias.
nhớ trong đợt nó cũng nhớ từ mong chạy lù lì lúc nào cũng bây giờ nên chạy lù nhớ từ lúc tung sĩ thằng nó thọ sai họ lù có san nó thế mù nhớ từ lúc tung sĩ thằng nó nếu lúc bỏ chạy lù nhớ từ họ cá nhớ từ sao gì có yếu bỏ đại đô luôn đấy thế lúc nào bây giờ lù mấy thế lù mong chạy từ lúc cho từ lúc nào thì có sao từ lù mong nếu từ lúc lù mong chỉ có yếu từ lù mong thì có sử dụng họ có lúc sao từ nếu từ họ có muốn gì chỉ có mà sai họ lúc có sao từ ở trong.
All right, thank you so much. Councilmember Arias, would you like to start us off with, oh, never mind. I think we're saving that for the end. So what I wanted to do is go into our displacement avoidance plan update. And so this is an update to our Here to Stay report. So as many of you know, we hired Dr. Destiny Thomas and Thrivance Group to produce a displacement avoidance plan report for Transform Fresno right before the pandemic hit. So since then, they have held workshops, connected with residents in the project area, and engaged with stakeholders. Thrivance has also put together a comprehensive report on displacement and displacement vulnerabilities, along with providing policy recommendations to prevent future displacement. This report is called the Here to Stay report, a policy-based blueprint for displacement avoidance in Fresno. And that's reached its final draft stage and is ready for public comment and input and feedback from the community. So Here to Stay has been posted on the Transform Fresno website, the homepage, and it's ready for the public's review of the document and then providing comments and feedback. So visit transformfresno.com. Right on the homepage, you'll see a pop-up that allows you to click on that link, and it'll take you right to the place where you can download a copy of the report. And then right there on the site, you can download the English version, Spanish version, and Hmong version. Currently, right now, we only have the English version up, and we're waiting for the Spanish and Hmong version. That should be up tomorrow morning. So we can also provide, you can also provide feedback in the form survey that was put together by Thrivance, and send your comments directly to transformfresno.gov. There's also a mail-in option. Right on the website, there is a form to fill out. It's much like a survey, and it will provide us some good feedback on the report and what your thoughts are. So we'll be putting out a mailer for notification on how to access this document and provide feedback. Currently, the comment period is set at 45 days, ending July 21st of 2021. However, we are discussing possibly extending that timeline to allow for more people to weigh in on the report. Our planning department will also be hosting 4 study sessions during this period to discuss some of the policy recommendations and their meaning and go over some questions that the community may have. There will be more information about these study sessions at the Anti-Displacement Task Force workshop. The purpose of the comment period is not only to let us know your thoughts about the report, but also to give your input on what policy recommendations within the report that you would like to see implemented. So of the approximate 48 policy recommendations, we are looking to prioritize the top 3 to 10 that interest most community members to focus on. So once finalized, staff will go ahead and work with the Anti-Displacement Task Force for some next steps in policy development. So with that, I'd like to encourage you to attend the Anti-Displacement Task Force meeting, and that will be held June 14th, which is next Monday, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for an in-depth review on how to read and interpret the Here to Stay report. The link for this meeting is also on the Transform Fresno website. If you log on to the website at transformfresno.com/displacement avoidance, or you can go into our calendar on the webpage and find the information for that meeting. The link and the agenda will all be there. So that is my update of the displacement avoidance plan. This is a really exciting milestone that we've kind of reached, and I look forward to getting all of the community feedback we can to finalize that report. So I guess now we can open up to questions about that. If anybody has any questions, please go ahead and raise their hand, and we'll call on you. And committee members, feel free to mute and unmute yourself if you do have questions about that. All right, seeing no questions, we'll move forward with project highlights. So now I'd like to turn it over to our project partners for some project highlights. Tonight, we'll be hearing from Chris De Leon at Fresno Metro Ministry on the Yeovil Community Orchard project, and also the Executive Director, Keith Bergthold, also from Fresno Metro Ministry, on the St. Rest plus Food to Share Hub. After each of these presentations, we will open it up for questions regarding those specific projects as well. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Chris De Leon for Project 15, the Yeovil Community Orchard.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen? Sweet, okay. So hi everyone, my name is Chris De Leon. I'm with Fresno Metro Ministry. I'm the Community Gardens Manager, and I am overseeing this project. So for the Yosemite Village Community Garden and Farm, we have project number 12 and project number 15. So project number 12 focuses on finishing the construction of the site, and then also on the outreach and engagement of community members around the site. In project number 15, we took it on to take Yeovil a step further by incorporating a community orchard and by expanding the garden plots that we have. And so this will allow us to host more people that can grow their own food on site, more people that can access food on site, more people that can learn, and more people that will have access to green spaces. So with that being said, I'm gonna move to the next one. So where is Yeovil? Yeovil is, if you haven't heard of it yet, Yeovil is on California and Fruit behind the Yosemite Village apartment complex. So to the left of Yeovil is Mariposa Meadows apartment complex, and then in front of it is Yosemite Village apartment complex. And this is one of the most recent aerial pictures of Yeovil. So that whole front part that looks really spirally, those are the community garden plots. And then in the back portion is where the farm plots are currently being developed right now. So the first part that I wanted to show is, I just wanted to give an update on the community garden capacity right now. So this is our current map. We have 92 community garden plots, 35 community gardeners that live in the area that are gardening, that are growing food for their own family. If you know anyone that's interested in a garden plot, please let them know. Garden plots are getting filled quickly. We have around like 10 of them left. They're $18 for 6 months or $35 a year. Yeah, so that's currently what's there. And then the expansion, so that's what's part of number 15. So we will be expanding the community garden plots to the bottom portion. And on there, we'll be able to add another 42 or 48 garden plots. And these will be utilizing the Hugo culture planting method, which involves saving all of the wood that we have from our trees or from any cuttings, and then incorporating that into the bottom of the beds so that the beds hold moisture for a longer time. We can add compost to that as well. It's just a very innovative planting method that we hope to utilize on the bottom so that we can save a lot more tree branches and a lot more things on site that we produce, which will also reduce emissions over time because we're keeping all of the carbon material that's produced on site at the site. We also have some supplies for the hoop houses there on the left that you can see. And so in the area in the middle, so back to this picture, the Hugo plots will go there under where the community garden plots are currently at. And then under that, in that big brown spot that you see there, that's where the ground was leveled so that we can install our hoop houses. And so this is what they look like. We just finished them, I think, last week. So at this point, obviously, we don't need a lot of heat for starting seedlings because it's already kind of late in the season. So we covered it with a shade cloth on the right. So now we can start plants in there and they won't get burned. But for sure in the winter, we're going to be growing lots of seedlings. We can produce lots of seedlings for residents that are on the site, for the farmers, and then also maybe sell some in the front at the farmer's market that's going to open up, or the farm stand that's going to open up. Okay, and then the biggest part of this project is the community orchard. So in the area that we have in the back, which is, if you look in the very bottom of our property in the back, is where the community orchard is going to go. And so we're able to fit around 144 fruit trees there and still have the native plants that we wanted to plant in the area. So we're going to be installing around 120 to 140, depending on our final site plan. So this is a bit of a rough design, draft design. And then on the left, we're also going to be expanding the existing swale to add 2 more valley oak trees and some native plants for pollinators there too. And then opening it up too in case there's extra water, because the swale, it's meant to catch extra rainwater. And so that water will go into the swale and water the native plants and then also come out into the orchard. And this orchard is going to be grown using permaculture methods, so permaculture organic methods. And so we're basically going to be planting trees, working with different canopies, all going to be fruit and nut trees, and then also planting some nitrogen fixing shrubs and trees in between there too, so that we don't have to add any extra nitrogen, any extra chemicals. We'll have the trees suck out nitrogen from the soil, and then we'll have trees that give the nitrogen back. And then in the areas that don't have those trees, we're going to have alley cropping, which is where you plant a cover crop, or you can also just grow like annual vegetables as well in between the rows. And so it'll be a great demonstration site. It'll be a great way to access lots of fruit on site. We plan on just having it open to community members to pick fruit. And then when we have like a bust of lots of different fruit during the summers, we'll have volunteers pick them and we can sell the excess to at the front of the property or donate the rest. So we're currently working on what fruit trees we're going to plant. So to decide that, we want to make sure that we have fruit every month, and that we don't just like scatter all of the trees in many different ways. So we want to have all of the fruit trees that are going to produce in May in one area, all the ones in June and July and August, but also a variety. So we're kind of using this chart, and then we're also looking at some other trees that aren't on this chart. And then also some trees that some residents may be interested in. For example, some of the gardeners mentioned that they really like guava trees. And so that's one of the trees that we really want to incorporate, and kumquat trees and loquat trees. So they're less traditional, they're not on here, but we will have to balance like what are some cultural fruits that residents in the area might really want. And then also like what's available and what we can find. And then, yeah, and we're just going to be planting it this way in sections of seasonally produce that's available. That way we have fruit all year round, or most of the year. And so another design that we've been trying to figure out with, so this original design was just to see like how many trees could we fit back there. But something that we noticed was that this is less accessible to someone than, let's say, is on a wheelchair and wants to go through the orchard and see it. It feels more like a traditional orchard instead of like a place that you can kind of wander into and collect fruit. And so we've been playing with the idea of having it come out so that this new brown line on the right is something that I kind of just added to give a little visual of something we've been thinking. We've been thinking of extending this pathway that's made out of DG, compressed DG, that is ADA accessible, and extending that out to the bottom and then have it loop back around and have the orchard hang around the pathway as like a walking orchard, so you can walk down the pathway and collect fruit, but then also having trees around the area as well. And so it gives more access, it makes more trails in the area, it makes it seem more like nature-y. There's winding paths, so it kind of slows you down. And then it'll also give people a little bit of a pathway to come see the farm plots as well. So I kind of put farm plot there. There's one farm plot that's going to be on that part, and then the orchard will be in the back of it. And so that's a design that we're still trying to play with and see how we can incorporate that on there. And so the steps to begin the community orchard and the Hugo Mounds. So right now we're finalizing the tree and native plant species list, just like I mentioned, trying to figure out what trees are available, what trees do residents want, and then also trying to figure out just like the final orchard design and trying to get everything together. And then we will have to get a consultation with the regional urban forester. Our plan is to start planting the trees by September, October, November, during that time. Because that is the best time that you want to plant trees. When the trees start to go dormant, they start to lose their leaves and they focus on on expanding their roots for the winter. And so that's the best time that we're going to end up doing that. We already have the drip irrigation in the area because we had native plants. So we don't really have to install any underground irrigation systems. And by September, we're also going to finalize the garden bed design. And we also want to calculate how much woody biomass those beds would acquire. Like how much prunings are those beds going to utilize, so that we can kind of figure out a number of like how much carbon is going to be stored in the ground. And then next year is where we're going to start working on our pergola design. So we're also going to be installing a pergola on site to have outdoor classes on there with 4 solar panels. And so we're going to be working a little bit more on getting the building permits to put that in. It's going to be a 35 by 40 foot pergola, so it's pretty big. And then lastly, all of this work was done by residents, by us, and by volunteers. So we have volunteer work days, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7 to 10 right now. And so if you want to help with weeding, mulch, or maintaining the site, or if you want to learn how to do things like install a hoop house, or work with some of the farmers that we have on site. Amber's contact information is on the bottom, so you can always call or email to sign up. All right, so that's all that I have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. We'll go ahead and go to our committee members. Morgan, did you want to go ahead and speak?
Yeah, I guess I had a couple questions. Thank you for that presentation, Chris. That was nice. But the plots that are available, you said there's like 10 of them available. How many square feet is that approximately?
They're about 10 by 15 feet. Like that's the average price of most of them. Yeah.
So 150 square feet. Okay. And then the people that take care, that do like, would you use the word like rent or lease the plots? Is that how it works?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they would be totally responsible of maintaining their plot?
So when they first start, we help them set up the plot. Sometimes we get people that are like, I just want to use it, like I'm on it. And we're like, okay, go for it. And then we get some other people that are like, oh, I know how to do it, but I need help with the drip irrigation. So we have all the drip irrigation supplies that they need. We have tools in the shed too that they can utilize. And then we get some people too that are like totally new to gardening. They've never done it before and they require a little bit more help. And so we also do provide coaching if they need coaching. We have some seeds that are available too. And once in a while, we also get transplants that are donated to us. And so we help them plant some of those. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's so the ones that like are the typical people that are I guess renting or leasing these plots from you, what are they doing with the finished product, or what do they plan on? Like is this to feed the community, or is it to make profit, or are they growing to just out of enjoyment or entertainment, or how do you feel?
Yeah, so it's been happening for a year already. So since gardeners have been gardening since last year, since March. And so they've been growing year round for their families. They usually grow vegetables and fruits. Right now they have huge corn stalks. Yeah, so it's usually just food for their families, or they'll trade amongst each other too. And then the farmers that are in the back of the property, so we have 3 farmers that are using a ½ acre each, and they're training to be urban farmers using regenerative agriculture techniques. And so they will be not only feeding their own families, but they'll be selling at the farm stand in the front. So they just got started this last month. So right now, some of them are planting. They just finished their drip tubes. And then we're hoping that this summer we can set up a farm stand and they can start selling some produce to other residents that may not know how to grow their own food or aren't able to. So they can at least purchase some fresh produce in their backyard.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Arias?
Yes. What safety measures are you taking to secure the equipment and any chemicals that you have on site? And have you had any break-ins?
Sorry, could you repeat that one more time? I couldn't hear the first part.
What safety measures are you taking to secure the equipment, the chemicals, and have you had any vandalism?
Okay. Yeah, so the whole site is permaculture based, and so one of the agreements is that chemical pesticides cannot be used on the site, and so we don't have any of that on site. The tools are in a storage container, so we have one of those like those big shipping containers that are put on boats and like shipped across the ocean. So we purchased one that was already used and not being utilized anymore. And so it allows us to have a big safety container where we can have tools on there. And then we have had at the very beginning around last year in March, when Trisha and Ashley, our 2 first gardeners, started gardening, did an amazing job and helped us like set up the whole site and came up with like the idea of how to split up the plots and everything. They did have a lot of vandalism where people would come in, didn't quite understand what a community garden was, thought they could just like come and take things. They had some of their plants taken, tools would go missing. But after thinking about the site, and we were like, we could just take like an approach of putting up a huge fence and making it really secure, but that also doesn't give the feeling that we wanted. And so right now, what our solution ended up being was we put a wood like aesthetic fence just to kind of give like a sense of place. So you have to enter the place, so that kind of makes people a little bit more wary when taking things because it's no longer an empty lot. And then the residents just started like recruiting tons of people. Anyone that walked by, they were like, hey, you walk by here often. Do you want a garden? I'll teach you. And that's basically how we got so many gardeners. And then our two most engaged residents live right across the street from the site. So they're always watching out for it. They always call if anything happens. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, no more questions from our committee members. We'll go ahead and take it over to the public. So Estela Ortega, go ahead. You can unmute yourself, Estela.
Sí, bueno, nomás quería saber si también van a plantar árboles de fruta o van a ser árboles normales.
Hola, Estela. Vamos a plantar árboles, todos los que vamos a plantar van a ser de fruta. So, van a ser unos 120 de fruta.
Y también no alcancé a tomar el número del que habían puesto en la pantalla.
Ok. Lo voy a poner en el chat, ¿ok?
Gracias.
Ok, de nada.
Chris, just so you know, the chat only goes to the panelists. It doesn't go to people in the community. So,
okay, there we go. There's a button for it. I just clicked it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Y también otra cosa, me gustaría que involucraran más a la comunidad para que ellos sepan lo que está pasando, porque nada más estoy yo como comunidad, es lo que estoy mirando, y hay muchas personas que sí están interesadas en estos proyectos.
Estela, si quiere, comuníquese conmigo. Casi hacemos comunicamos con los residentes que están alrededor del sitio y llamamos a las personas y también luego vamos a las casas y estamos tratando de encontrar a las personas que quieran jardinet. Contácteme y también le doy más folletos o más información a la gente que también se quiera unirse.
Gracias.
Sí, no, gracias a usted.
Thank you. Mrs. Curry, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay. Yes, I was wondering if people are selling the produce, or how are they able to raise money, or how are they charging for plots? I'd like that explained a little bit. I noticed you said
so
$18 and 1 year is $35. What does TCC do in the way of paying for this particular issue?
Yeah, so the garden plot fees are to sustain the site beyond TCC funding. So all of our community gardens that we have, we collect the funds, and then at the end, we have gardener meetings every year, and we decide collectively what to do with the funds. At Yeovil, we decided to use the funds for water. So they will go into future water costs as well, and to make sure that the site is sustained beyond grant funding. So when TCC is over, this project is going to continue. Gardeners are going to continue to have access to the site and to their garden plots.
I guess one of the questions I would have is that if persons are not able to pay for a garden plot, are they still allowed to have a plot? Because if TCC is going to support this bill, my understanding was that the cost would not be to the users. So, and who decides how much and when to charge?
Yeah, so there's a Yeovil Garden Leadership Team. So there's a garden leadership team at the site comprised of some residents, and then we collectively sat together like a year and a half ago and tried to come up with a fair price for the garden plots. So if someone's not able to pay the $18 for 6 months or $35 for a year, they can do by month. So it's $3 a month. If they're still not able to do that, if they help with site maintenance, if they help us clean up the site regularly, then we can waive that fee. And so we do have ways to help people and work with people. Even if they need assistance too, we're also giving out stipends for people that are part of our garden leadership team. And so if they really want to be a part of it and they're really struggling financially, we can also have them join us in developing the site and in keeping up with it and securing it as well.
Well, I guess my final question would be, who is on the garden leadership team and how does one get on the garden leadership team?
Yeah, so the garden leadership team right now is only for residents of 93706 that are current gardeners. And so you would have to start gardening at the site and then let me know that you want to be a part of it. Right now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members. So 3 of them are farmers and then 4 of them are gardeners at the site. And so, yes, if you want to garden, let me know. If you want to be part of the garden leadership team, we can sign you up for a garden and then go from there.
How many gardeners can you accommodate on that particular site?
We have room for, there's 10 more plots that are open right now.
And how many?
And then with this project 15, we're going to be adding another 48.
48?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll probably have some other questions later, but for now, that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Curry. Olivia, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to confirm first. You guys mentioned donations, right, Chris? Like donating some of the vegetation, I guess. Well, are you guys thinking of donating any of those, I guess, for example, like to the Fresno State Pantry? Because I know they get a lot of like donations from like nonprofits and from the actual food bank. So I was wondering if like that's something you guys are considering, because I know, students like myself tend to utilize the Fresno State Pantry a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I work with for Fresno Metro, which does the food to share program. And so what we were thinking is any leftover produce that we have, which at this point we don't have any leftover because it's just gardeners growing their own produce for their own family. But any that we do have when the farmers start to produce a lot and sell, we're going to donate through the food to share program, which takes it to lots of different food pantries around Fresno, including the Fresno State one as well.
Great question. Thank you, Olivia. Moving back to our committee members, Barbara, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hi, Barbara. Yes, we can.
I have Chris, I want to thank you because, I remember as a teenager growing up on the West Side, we used to have a vegetable stand down at the corner of Fruit in California. And my mom used to send me down there to get greens and stuff like that. So thank you. But I do have a question regarding the little rodents that are running all around and everything, the squirrels and stuff that eat the fruit on the trees and stuff. How are you going to control those? Because I find that I have plum trees in my yard, and before I can go out and get any plums off my tree, if they get ripe, the little squirrels, I go out in the yard and they're all on the ground with bites in them. So how are you going to control those?
Yeah, so we're trying to do, like trying to build a habitat for predators of the pests that attack crops. And so right now, a really cool thing that we have that that always makes me laugh every time I see them. There's 3 foxes on the property that eat ground squirrels. I don't know how they got there, but I love them. They're my favorite because they're like little dogs that just like take care of our pest issues. Sometimes they eat some fruit, but I'm like, well, you're eating the ground squirrel, so that's fair. And so I think just like having that natural habitat, there's also egrets above too that also eat a lot of the pests, and they come to the basin right next to the site. We planted tons of native plants around the area to improve how much ladybugs there are and how much praying mantises there are. And those control a lot of the populations of like aphids or anything like that. And we also we purposefully plant pollinator like garden plots. We assign some just for flowers so that bees can come onto the site and so that more of those beneficial insects come. And so we're trying to do like a whole like ecosystem regeneration to bring back some of these animals that help with pest control.
Okay.
Artie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So you mentioned bees, Chris. I'm wondering when you fully develop the orchard, will you need to bring in bee boxes in the future? Do you foresee that?
Hopefully we can just get permanent bees at the site. That would be awesome. That's what I'm thinking. Having to bring in and out bees confuses them too, and then it's not the best for them. And so if we can just harbor bees at the site, since there will be food at the site year round, that would be incredible. For now, there's already plenty of bees on site. And so I think we'll have to see how it is once we plant them in. If the fruit isn't producing, then we can hurry that up. But my plan is to at some point bring a beekeeper and be like, hey, do you want to keep some bees here? We'll take care of them and they can keep some beekeeping classes.
Great. Thank you for all those great questions. Doesn't look like anybody else has any questions, so we'll go ahead and turn it over to Keith Bergsel, the Executive Director of Fresno Metro Ministry, for his presentation on the St. Rest plus Food to Share Hub.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for having us come tonight. Chris, great presentation. I do want to point out again that great logo for the Yeovil Garden. That is a cool logo. Can y'all hear me? You good? So first of all, I want to thank some people. We have great partners on this St. Rest plus Food to Share Hub. Pastor DJ Kreiner, Ron and Bernice Wiley, the deacon and the head of the food ministry, just incredible people, and the congregation and the St. Rest, EDC, Olivia, Thomas, people who are just wonderful people. And then we've got a champion like Artie Padilla, who we've worked very closely with all through this. So I want to thank Artie especially. And then we've got some really good partners now in the design and construction area. Paul Halajian is the architect on the project for us, and he's got a younger architect by the name of Jamie Steinmetz, who grew up in Easton, which is great, just down Elm Avenue, and she's working on the project. And then Tommy Tarleton of Tarleton & Son Construction is going to be our contractor. So I wanted to mention them because they are just really wonderful people. I wanted to show you some slides that we developed. Artie and I actually developed some of these with the Public Health Institute and the Building Healthy Places Network, because we really wanted to start to elevate a lot of this work for health. And we really tie, like this first slide shows, the Southwest Fresno Community Health Hub is what we're hoping will be a stretch of Elm Avenue between Grove and California that will be this vision of the Elm Avenue revitalization strategy. It would include all kinds of healthy food, including the St. Rest campus and this food hub, but maybe a healthy food grocery store, businesses, apartments, a number of things that would hopefully make this a promenade in Southwest Fresno and increase the revitalization on a social, economic, and environmental basis. But you all know the area very well, and you know some of the statistics. I think by looking at this as a way to address health inequities and to focus on the role of food in addressing and preventing disease. We think it's really important, and there are obviously a lot of disparities that you already know about. I'm not telling you anything new, but we want to address those in ways through this project that are more than just rehabbing an old warehouse and creating a new food platform. So the project is to rehab the old warehouse, bring in a kitchen, really help the whole campus get done, the open space and green spaces on the campus, really look at that corridor section. We want to link this to a citywide or countywide health policy council, food policy council, just a whole bunch of things that the St. Rest plus Food to Share hub can catalyze. And, we really feel like, there's a whole food desert, food insecurity framework here to address with this. But also want to acknowledge, while there's chronic disease and there's certainly poverty and there's a lot of environmental issues, there's also a ton of amazing people with gifts and skills and knowledge and passions that can be brought together in ways and hopefully unified by this kind of a project on Elm Avenue. And so we want to make this a bigger project than just the warehouse on the campus. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. We also want to make sure we connect back to the Fresno Community Health Needs Assessment that was conducted in 2019 and these kinds of priorities that came out of it. And we think this should really be addressing all the social determinants of health in addition to access to healthy foods. And that we really should try and work through this kind of project on the equity of the food system, that it really needs to be holistic, that it really needs to drive investment and revitalization that the Southwest Fresno community wants. This is the old warehouse. You guys have driven by it, you know where it is. This is kind of the site that's starting to be converted by this project. I think it's really important to pull this back to the Elm Avenue corridor vision and the revitalization strategy. This is a plan that was approved by the city of Fresno in 2019. It involved a lot of community engagement by people that live in Southwest Fresno. Kind of was done right after the Southwest Fresno Specific Plan. This is actually a vision of the kind of mixed use along Elm Avenue that the community wanted to see that was included in the strategy. This is, of course, the corridor kind of view. This is the catalyst site of St. Rest. And this is the view of the St. Rest campus. In the yellow is what St. Rest campus owns now. This is actually the warehouse building. Here's the church. There's some other opportunity sites around the campus and along Elm to take a look at. So we want to make this, again, a catalyst for more that would help the community. This is the campus master plan, the green space and aeronarium. This is the community center that the EDC and the church have been working on for years, that is now under, it's operational and it's being used every day with a great playground out here. This is the location of the warehouse, and this is actually the whole site. This is sort of the generalized plan for this facility and the redoing that facility. But I'll draw your attention to this. So this is sort of the plan right now to both do number 16, which is the heat island or the urban heat island mitigation, and also still use the warehouse for food logistics and kitchens and things like that. So this is a view of coming in with the trucks backing up and then leaving and having a lot of room for picnic areas and things like that that would make it highly useful for the community as well as some of the campus activities. This is just a very kind of a schematic of the existing food ministry area, how the center of it would be a logistical platform with walk-in refrigeration and freezing, kitchen area, new offices for the food ministry, restrooms. This would be a kind of an elevated ramp to get in and out of there for the public, and then you would have your loading docks there. This all kind of evolves to this kind of a view, and I want to contrast really quickly that view with this view real quick. Sorry, don't make you dizzy or anything. But this is the initial drawing, and I'm sorry for anybody, this is redundant. Maybe I presented this a few weeks back, but I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share it with you again. This is a view that Halajian's come up with, was how the facade of that old warehouse would change and how it would become more contemporary and a real asset, for the community, something that would be a model for the kind of new development and rehabilitation and adaptive reuse that could occur along Elm Avenue that is consistent with the Elm Avenue revitalization strategy. This would be sort of a view of what that currently just some broken asphalt and some other things could be changed into with these kinds of architectural features. A view of how it might look if you were visiting there that day, that sort of thing. And this would be the ramp back into the sort of the kitchen area and those kinds of things. again, a street view of this old warehouse, but refreshed and looking very contemporary and nice. And then we're hoping to have a kitchen, not maybe exactly like this, but pretty close, where you would have these learning tables where people could come in and take cooking skills classes. Food to Share does teach a 6-module Cooking Matters course, and a lot of confidence and competence for people that really want to learn these skills about nutrition, how to cook healthy foods and those things. We get really good results with this, and we've done hundreds and hundreds of people have gone through. And to kind of address an earlier question by another Olivia, right? Food to Share, we just cracked the 3 million pound mark this last week of food that was recovered, that was intercepted and did not go to the landfill and then redistributed. And that's pretty remarkable because we hadn't actually recovered a pound 4.5 years ago, and we're up to 3 million pounds cumulatively. And then we actually crossed the 5 million pound mark for all total food distributed through Food to Share. So we're very interested in making healthy food accessible. We do support the Bulldog Pantry, the pantry out at Fresno State, the student pantry. We work very closely with Jessica Medina and others there. So we want to deliver food the best we can. I think the bottom line is we're in the process of completing architectural drawings. We're trying to get into the permitting process with this facility. We're thinking about some expansion as well on the campus. There may be some other things we want to bring to the table. We really want to leverage this investment. We just wrote a grant and submitted a grant to EPA for a feasibility study for a healthy food co-op grocery store that would be owned by the community. And so we're trying to do some deeper feasibility of what that would look like to put a healthy food grocery store there on Elm close to the campus. So there's a bunch of things we're trying to do, and we're just so grateful to TCC to seed us on this aspect. But I guess I just want to say we want to do a lot more, and we think that the St. Rest campus is poised to be a catalyst for a lot of new investment and new relationships and new partnerships that will benefit Southwest Fresno. I'll just stop there.
Thank you so much, Keith. Appreciate your presentation. Just a quick note to everybody. I wanted to let you know that these presentation slides will be posted on the Transform Fresno website tomorrow, so you can get a better in-depth look at all the pictures and the schematics and information. So I just wanted to say that quick note. We'll go ahead and take it out for questions. So Councilman Arias, go ahead.
Keith, I have 2 very specific questions. One, what's your total budget? How much have you raised of your total budget? And 2, what's your construction schedule?
The total budget for the warehouse and the conversion that we're proposing here is about, for construction alone, is about 1.7 million. We might want to do more for the kitchen and some other things and raise some extra money, but that's about the total budget, and that we've raised. But we're looking to actually raise some more and add some more leverage to this project. So I'll be candid about that. We'd like to raise some more money and add some more facility and some other things. Our construction schedule for the warehouse, the way we're sitting right now is that we would like to be permitted, sometime late summer, early fall if we can. And we're still on the schedule. I mentioned to, I think you about a month and a half ago, we would like to have occupancy of the warehouse by the end of the first quarter of 2022.
Thank you for that, Keith. Mrs. Curry, would you like to go ahead and speak?
Okay. I have a couple of questions, and maybe you've already answered them and I missed them, but I want to know, how old is the warehouse and what kind of conversion have you done already?
Mrs. Curry, it's good to hear your voice. And the warehouse was built apparently in 3 different phases. We know the first phase was almost 80 years ago. And apparently there's some building that was added on in different pieces, maybe 20 or 30 years after that. So there might be some parts that are 50 years old. We think there's some parts that are 80 years old. The walls are different in different phases. And right now we're still testing the walls. We actually had some structural come in here recently, and we haven't done any conversion yet because we have to make sure we can do everything at one time.
My other question is, have you checked for asbestos in buildings that old? Sometimes they have asbestos in them. And I wouldn't want you to put forth all that effort and not find out if you have asbestos.
Mrs. Curry, that's a very astute question. There was a number of environmental hazard assessments, and there's asbestos in the building, and there is ammonia that was used as a coolant for refrigeration, decades and decades ago. Those were all dialed into the cost of remediation for the building.
My follow-up question is, I'm getting a little bit thrown off because TCC is supposed to do certain things. And when these projects were put forth, I think that people were asked what they were about and what they were going to do and how much they were contributing. So it sounds like this is a whole new, I'm just trying to get information. It sounds like it's a whole new project, deal directly with St. Rest Church. Is that correct?
Yes, and maybe Courtney can help out with this a little bit. There was some previous project that did not work out, and we were asked to propose something new, and we suggested that it take place at the St. Rest campus and convert this warehouse and those kinds of things and add to the campus and add to the Elm Avenue. So maybe Courtney, I'll let you maybe explain a little bit of that, but we've provided the same kind of vision since we were invited into the process.
And who will own this eventually? Who will own it? Is it going to be St. Rest ownership or is it community ownership?
Oh, St. Rest will own it 100%.
Those are great questions, Mrs. Curry, and I just want to assure you that everything that he presented on specifics are TCC funded. They are looking to expand, of course, and he talked a little bit about that, but the main focus and what he presented on is all funded by TCC.
Well, I guess I would also like to zero in on the fact that we're dealing with environmental issues in West Fresno, and we have asbestos there. Either you have to remediate and get rid of it, or you have to seal it. So my concern is, how will this impact the health issues in West Fresno, and how does it impact the Best Baby Zone where we have preterm birth problems?
My response to your question, Mrs. Curry, again, it's a good question, is that this building's been assessed with a rigorous, in fact, several phases of environmental hazard assessments, and there are recommendations for how to safely remove the asbestos and safely remove the previous refrigeration equipment that was used, so that there is no spread at all. But yeah, you were right. These old buildings were built in ways that had hazards built into them, and this is something we knew about from the very beginning, that we would have to remediate that according to safe handling rules so that none of it would spread.
So the remediation is being covered by your project projections for finances, or is it being covered by TCC?
Actually, the remediation is a separate leverage grant, which we're getting through EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. So we're working with the city and a firm called Stantec, and we're finishing up about an $80,000 to maybe $100,000 grant that would actually pay as a match to the TCC money.
Okay, for now, that's all I have for the moment. I'll probably ask you something later.
Thank you, Mrs. Curry. Pastor Lewis, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I have a statement. I think if I'm correct, we should be clear that before Metro Ministries and St. Rest came into this project, that building and some of the equipment in it currently were donated to St. Rest. So TCC funding would not be paying for the building or the land. It was, if I remember correctly, they already had that because it was donated to them. And that's all I wanted to clarify.
Pastor, that is correct. Good to hear your voice too. 2014, the Farmer John Meat Company donated the building and a half-acre parcel to St. Rest.
Thank you, Pastor Lewis, for that clarification. Does anybody else have any questions regarding Project 16 and 17? Again, to raise your hand, you would just need to press *9, I believe, if you're on the phone. All right, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate your presentation, Keith. Always good to hear from you. So
Thank you.
with that, we'll go ahead and move it on to public comment. I know Councilman Arias, you wanted to go ahead and speak on this.
Yes, thank you, Courtney, and to the committee. I know I've sent you a couple of emails on the status of the West Fresno park paid for by TCC, the approximately 9-acre park. We do have some good news. We've made progress with the developer, and we have agreed on a purchase agreement for the 9 acres for the future park. That contract will go to City Council tomorrow for consideration, but I wanted to also clarify for the group that the purchase is for 9 acres for a park. The developer will retain ownership of 1 acre. I think it's 1.1 to be exact, for a future construction at their cost and their ownership of a potential public use facility. That additional acre is zoned public use, so they could build a community center of sorts that would be privately constructed, paid for, and operated if they chose to. If they chose to do any other kind of use, like a commercial use in that 1 acre parcel adjacent to the park, that would have to go through a rezoning process. But we did reach an agreement. The park will also remain without a name. In accordance to the city policy, we will undertake a public process.
Uh-oh, I think we lost him. I believe he was talking about a public process to name the park, which we will be following through on.
I got back.
Oh, there you are. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to point out that we will undertake a public process as required by the city municipal code to name the park. And this is simply a purchase agreement. The total purchase cost is $2 million. Approximately $200,000 per acre is the purchase cost for the 9 acres of the future park. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I will make sure Courtney sends the committee a copy of the purchase agreement that the council will consider tomorrow.
Great, thank you for that announcement. Does anybody have any questions related to the park project?
This is Amy. I would just like to state congratulations. It sounds like it's been a long, hard negotiation, and I'm glad it's going to the city council tomorrow. So there's not much time for things to get more complicated.
Thank you, Amy. Artie, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. What if I missed this? Is the park still going to be in the same general area, right in the center of that big land?
Yes, it will be right in the center of that parcel. And it will be a public park. And as part of the purchase agreement and part of the development agreement with the 120-acre master plan community there, the city will also be paying for the offsite improvements of the park and of the area to the amount of approximately $5 million, which should help the developer move forward with the single family and multifamily housing and commercial development that they agreed upon with the development agreement.
Thanks.
Thank you, Artie. Anyone else? Any other comments you'd like to make? Anyone would like to make on anything TCC related? Mrs. Curry, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
I'd like to know, when will the planning for the park takes place?
We have just secured the architect, I think it's officially how you describe it. They will be coming for an award pretty soon to the council, and then the architect is required to undertake the planning work. So we should see it pretty soon now, but I'll have a more specific time after tomorrow for everyone.
I guess my concern is, you said the architect will be coming for an award. Has he already done some work that he's getting an award for? Or are you going to award him ahead of his schedule?
No, there was some design work, Mrs. Curry, done as part of the development agreement by the Shahadis and Sylvester Hall.
Mhm.
So there was some general.
Is there a community?
There was some what?
Oh, I think we may have lost him again. I can fill in. So there was some initial development in the early planning stages prior to TCC. But for the park specifically, we're going to award a design contract to a consultant, and they're going to start the design process. So it'll be starting from fresh.
Excuse me, is it a community project that the community will get to weigh in on? Is it the architect and all have been already?
No, so the design consultant has been chosen through a panel to include some of the development staff, plus city employees. So we will be awarding that design contract to that specific consultant, but part of that consultant's job is to do some outreach to the community and go through a community engagement process for the design of the park. So there will be several meetings talking about the park, what folks want to see at the park, and things like that. So that is part of the design consultant's job.
Who will run the community engagement park development for this process? Have you identified an organization, a community-based organization, or are you depending on the city to do some outreach?
The outreach is going to be mainly provided by the design consultant, and I can't remember off the top of my head what community-based organization they have chosen for that. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it is a local organization that will help with that community engagement process, and the city will also be helping too.
Would we be able to get who that actually is? Because so many of the community members have worked on the park's issue and have a vested interest in helping to design the park. And that is exactly what the process was presented to community as being a community-led process for designing. And so I can't see that an agency would come in and design the park without community input. That just seems, that doesn't seem like a process that values the community.
Right, and that's what I was saying is there will be a significant amount of community input in that whole design process. I do know that there were several companies that were involved in the early development process that have also been part of the design consultant group that will also be weighing in. So they are very familiar with that community engagement process that took place early on. And I imagine they will be kind of adding on to that and asking for more input from the community the entire time.
I guess one of the questions that I have is, I know that you don't have to do things the way other people do them, but I know that when City College planned their campus and so forth, they had community input on the architect, on the design, and the whole thing. They didn't wait until they got all that together and then invited the community. They invited the community in on the ground floor. So you don't have to do it the way they did it, but it certainly did make the community feel like they were a part of it.
Right, so the community is going to be involved on the ground floor. So once we have that consultant on board, that will start the process. Nothing else has been decided other than that, but we had to hire somebody on to start that process. So
that was the part that I would expect the community would have had some input on, but you've already done that.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Kimberly?
Question, Courtney. I'm sorry, I'm sitting outside and there's traffic going by, but do we know who has been hired for the architect? Like what design company? Can you at least give us that information if you know it?
I'm trying to think of the name of them. I don't have it off the top of my head. I'd have to look back through my files to look for that. And I apologize for not having that information.
It's okay, thank you. Just like when you get it, are we going to receive it?
Yeah, I will go ahead and send it out to the committee once I look that up.
That way, when we find, I'm sorry, that way we will know and we can actually advocate for a true community engagement process once we know who has been hired to make sure that that happens.
You bet. I will send that over.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from anyone? Oh, looks like Mrs. Curry, go ahead.
Well, my comment is simply this, and I'm not just criticizing people, but I'm just going to say this because it's really important to the West Fresno community that we be a part of all of it, not after certain parts have been selected or made a decision about. We have struggled for years trying to get things done in our community. And we just want to feel like we're a part of the whole process, not just after some decisions are made. Even if our input is not accepted, at least we would feel that we had the opportunity to have input. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, I don't see Councilman Arias on. He must have got disconnected. So with that, we can go ahead and close out the meeting. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Hopefully there was some great information. And again, please visit the Transform Fresno website to look at the Here to Stay report and to get the updated documents from this meeting and presentations from this meeting. Thank you all and have a great night.